And, and so I was blurring in and out.
Okay.
Amelia's gonna blur in and out. Yeah. Where do you turn that off, Evan? Don't worry about it right now. It's okay. Okay, and if someone else, if we need to share the documents, and if someone else doesn't mind sharing, because I don't have them with me. Well, I think actually, Dr. Wyman, since you created the meeting, you could share if there's a document we choose to share, right?
Okay, well, can I didn't download them. I don't think I have them in my email, but
Okay.
so do I,
I downloaded them. I
oh,
think I can share them.
okay, great. You go ahead and do it.
Which one do you want to do first, Kim?
Well, let's talk about them, Dr. Mabry, and as a, see as a group, what you thought about the documents and kind of talk about the process. I have my mask on because Amelia and I are in the meeting. We're right here together in the same room. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in regard to the standards, overall, QM has this big list of standards, and they're kind of overwhelming if we were to try to use their checklist. So I didn't include that. To me, that would be a lot to introduce to the staff. And so when the online evaluation form that was included in that we have, and I think I included that in the list, Dr. Mabry, that online evaluation.
Oh, online. Okay. Give me a second.
Okay.
The one from O of A or C of A, I mean.
No, the one that our instructors who teach online is the self-evaluation that they.
Oh, let me
fill
go
out.
into the intranet for that. Give me a
Oh,
second.
I'm sorry, I didn't include that one.
Was that in the email that you sent?
I thought I included that one.
I thought I had the College of the Albemarle online
Okay.
course
Maybe I didn't
evaluation.
include ours. Martin, we have one that all instructors who teach online fill out. It's a self-evaluation.
Yeah, it's in there. It's in there.
Okay. And there's one that
It's
looks a lot-
online instructor self-eval mid-year review.
right. And there's one from College of the Albemarle. You could put them up side by side if you wanted to.
Looking at the COA, I thought that it looked very similar to what we already had. And I liked it. I mean, it does have, I think it is going to be overwhelming regardless of what we put out there, because, a lot of the things when you first start going down, it's like, okay, I have that. And then it's like, well, maybe I don't have that, right?
Right,
So
right.
it's really going to be, and I know that we don't want it to be a punitive, we want it to be educational, I guess, so that we can get our instructors moving in that direction. So eventually everybody is there and doing the same thing. But I think it's going to take a while. I don't know if there's a plan for a timeline, or if, as long as we're working toward it, we're going to meet the 5th-year review.
Right. So it just kind of seemed to me that since we already have the tool that is the one that the faculty are used to seeing, the online, the faculty self-evaluation that teach online, and that they are held accountable to that already. And it was the way that it was structured, it is based on QM standards.
You want me to bring that up, Kim?
Please. Rather than introducing a different tool, that if we took that tool and looked at that one, and then instructors, we started there with that one, like you said, Dr. Wyman, it's already going to be overwhelming. So if we started with something that they're going to be held accountable for anyway, it gives them some confidence when they get ready to go into their evaluation with their supervisor. It's something that they've seen before, particularly for new instructors. It's something that they've seen before and that they're working towards. And it's not a separate thing, because that would seem like it would build a disconnect into the evaluation process. What do y'all think about that? Or do we?
I'm good with it.
I think, and you may have said this, I think we did that, or at least in our department last year or last semester, we did that online evaluation.
Are you trying to turn the volume on?
Okay. Yeah, right. So you've used that form before.
Yeah, and like you said, it kind of follows all the stuff that we've been talking about. So, and I was going to pull it up, but
Okay.
it's not letting participants share screen. So
Oh,
only the host can share screen.
only I can?
She can give you permission.
I can? Okay.
If she stops eating her snack.
I know. Actually, it's actually heartburn. I can't.
Oh.
So let's see, what do I want to do? Allow what?
Other participants to share screen.
Let me share.
It doesn't say that though. It says, oh, I can make you a host.
Okay.
I'll do
I
that.
think that'll work.
I will make host. Yes. Okay, now you should be able to.
Oh, I don't want to host. Okay.
You're in charge now, Dr. Mabry.
Hey, that's a dangerous thing, letting me be in charge, you know. All right,
All
there
right.
we go.
Okay. There we go.
Perfect.
This is
All right.
the MCC one.
Okay. So, so when we look at that one, as Dr. Wyman pointed out, it's similar to the one that the College of the Albemarle uses. And a lot of colleges across, when we talk, Amelia and I meet monthly with the DL coordinators across the 58 colleges and participate in a DL, they have a forum that, they send out information. And so this is a similar tool that many colleges have in place. Everybody looks a little different, but don't you think, Amelia, that they look pretty similar to this? And more colleges they're building in QM type components. If they're Blackboard participants, then they're building in those Blackboard standards. Also what colleges are beginning to do is they're beginning to build in those Department of Education regulations. Those new online things. And so I'm going to just take a minute to mention here that kind of as a simultaneous type of process, what we're doing is we're getting ready to pick a meeting time with chairs, division chairs, to establish a work group for the Department of Education regulations to determine how to best interpret those and then implement a way to make sure that they are built into the courses. And then I could see maybe where those tools might merge together in some way. So that's kind of a simultaneous process that's going on as well, or that will be going on as well.
So they're going to be I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay, Dr. Mabry. I just wanted to make y'all aware of that.
So they're going to be talking about like how we're going to, because one thing I saw in that DOE stuff is it the institutions, or I guess the instructor's responsibility to actually clock student engagement time and record it in these online classes?
Right. So that's one of the things that we'll talk about, because in those DOE regulations, it says under multiple areas that it's each college's decision how to interpret it in regard to how you're going to measure it and document it and those kinds of things. And so there's going to have to be a lot of discussion around that. So there's 2 or 3 of those things in there that have to be decided by the college. And so there's going to need to be some discussion about that. So I know I probably didn't answer your question directly, but that's probably the best answer I have right now.
Well, I have a question about that too, because if, I saw those regulations too, and they are kind of ambiguous, or they have, so if the college, whatever the college decides, but one thing that I would like to suggest then is if that does happen, because, I still have trouble with it, like trying to read the reports that we can get off of Moodle. I need training in that because, and then now I'm getting dangerous because I've found some things that are kind of, that I didn't know existed. And now I'm like, well, and I'm questioning what I thought was true. So I guess that I would ask for whatever the college decides it is, then we need training in running that report, because we don't want to be going in there manually every semester or every quarter, looking back and saying, okay, what actually happened on this, course. It's like, we need, the tools to be able to do that in a very concise way, that we're not spending a lot of time getting the information. I'd rather spend my time analyzing the information and reporting it than collecting it when it
Right.
should all be computerized. So that's just my opinion.
Okay.
Well,
And
and my,
And yours, okay, and I'm sure that, these decisions won't be made in a bubble, it'll be, needs to be very faculty driven, and so I'm sure that there'll be a lot of discussion, about those kinds of topics. Yeah, and I'm, there's, manual computation is way too time consuming, and so, whatever it takes to get that done. We have IntelliBoard and those kinds of things as well. So, we'll see what we can do to get that worked out. So, when we go back to, is that, any other questions about the DOE regs before we go back to this? Okay. So, so when we look at this tool, which is already been approved by Human Resources, is this where we want to start? Is there agreement on putting this forward as something to start with?
do we want to go, do you want me to run it through or?
I think, I think it's a great starting point. I mean, this is the beauty of, making our own documents. We can change things as we find it's necessary to do so, but you have to start somewhere. You can't just, always be reinventing the wheel. So I'd rather start with something we have and something we know. But I'll go with the group, like whatever the group thinks, but I'd rather, have something to work with than starting from scratch again.
Okay. I'm seeing a lot of head nodding.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So Judy, Maureen, what do you think? Maureen, are you still here?
Yes, I was trying to figure out the unmute button. I was panicking. Yeah, that's fine with me. I agree. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, Austin?
Hey there. Sorry. I'm learning this stuff.
Yeah. So when an instructor is teaching an online course, and they're they may have had a little bit of experience or no experience, or they're going to be at different points on that continuum. And so they're asked to look at their courses and evaluate them on this self-evaluation. And so we know that, instructors, the goal is, to make progress every year, wherever they were when they took the first one, right? So as Dr. Wyman said, we don't want it to be punitive. We want it to be like a first one is the baseline measure on how they have these components in their course, and then to see how they can move forward. So when they do the next evaluation, there should be some improvement. They should have more of these, in their course, and it should continue to grow like that. So that's kind of the premise of this evaluation. And all of these particular categories are from Quality Matters, which is a kind of a gold standard of best practice and what should be in an online course. And so that's where these particular items came from in regard to measurement of what should be in an online course. So we're already using this tool. So what we're saying is that instead of reinventing the wheel, instead of trying to come up with a completely different tool that has to be vetted and then approved by human resources, using this same tool allows us to move forward with having a tool to start this process of how we can start measuring how we're doing and how instructors are doing in the quality of their online courses.
I think that works. And I think that this rubric, I mean, it contains a lot of the stuff that we're learning in the Quality Matters sessions, but it's general and it's all stuff that any online instructor should be doing anyway.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Also, I saw somewhere in this paperwork about when, you know, the faculty, not only the chairs and the dean or whoever the supervisor is for the faculty member, they can use this tool as a training tool too also. So if you go out and look at someone's course as the supervisor of that person, you know, it gives you an idea too, as the supervisor, where the person may need some training. And I think that can be very valuable, because if afterwards, as all the evaluations go into the dean, then in this case, Dr. Miller could be looking at that and saying, oh, you know, 75% of the faculty aren't doing this. So that's where we need to direct training. So it can be used on multiple levels for multiple things, not only for individuals, but as a college, you know, so that we can make some analysis and get things heading in the, you know, I think we are heading in the right direction, but get things even better.
Uh-huh.
You know,
So, you know, that's a very good point. And I hadn't thought about that, because we could already probably get data from that, because if I'm not mistaken, I'm not 100% sure, but I think when this tool is filled out by instructors now, I think it goes to the chairs. Is that correct? And the chairs review it with the instructors at their evaluation? Is that how that process goes?
I haven't done it with Vicky yet, so I don't know. Maybe Michelle, she said that they did it in her department, so I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, as I remember, and it may not have even been this exact rubric, because there are a couple of things that are different, but it was some kind of online self-evaluation. And I remember completing it and then talking to Daniel about it. We went over it after I completed it, so. yeah.
Okay.
That's my memory, but I'm getting old, so.
Okay, so if that's the case, we might, if we haven't been collecting that data, that's an excellent point. We could go ahead and ask, you know, just blindly, you know, just not by, you know, any names, but just patterns, you know.
Right, just patterns, right?
Yeah.
Just patterns.
And I think it's important to ask for, you know, where are we successful? You know,
Mhm.
where are we improving, and where do we need to focus our attention?
Mhm.
Right, so we want to collect, you know, where we're moving forward. So how can we gather that data?
Right. Okay.
Okay, and so in looking at, so what I liked about the College of the Albemarle's information is that they had sort of a process laid out. You know, 'cause
Yeah.
I think in Maureen's minute, she had typed out, pretty much, well, okay, let's define the tool. And then how are we going to move that process forward? What is it going to look like? How are we going to put it in place?
Mhm.
And so that's another reason I like the College of the Albemarles, because they already sort of had that outlined. Theirs is very formal and has a lot of steps. I'm not sure how you guys felt about it, whether you wanted it to look that in depth, or if you wanted to start out with something that had a little less, a few fewer to sort of modify that a little bit, particularly in the area of the mentor, where it's more in our QEP, it talks about an informal buddy system.
Right.
Dr. Wyman and I had talked about this. Dr. Wyman had some good points. Dr. Wyman, is anything you want to say about that?
Well, you know me, I want to make things as easy as possible. It's like, but still get the job done. I mean, I'm not saying we should be lax, but I'm just saying we shouldn't have to, most of the things that we do, I think can be done quite easily. We shouldn't have to be jumping through hoops and filling out forms needlessly. I do like having the process about the timing date that they have on this one sheet here. But I did think this was very formal, and I would like to have something a little less formal, but this sheet right here, how they had the timings on it. And I did like that, because that way everybody would know when they're supposed to be doing things and when they're, when they should be getting ready or whatever. So I did like this, but it doesn't have to be, we don't have to have all those steps. I just like that they had the months laid out, like when you were going to be doing it. And then for the people who were going to be the evaluators, I like that they had it in a fall group or a spring group, like not everybody's doing it at the same time. And I think that's important too. And I think that people should alternate spring and fall, because you teach different courses in spring and fall. So, but I did like that. I did have one question though about on that first page that is the letter to the full-time faculty at the College of the Albemarle, the
Mhm.
faculty. They had the faculty evaluation packet. And then they had, right after that, they want the curriculum vitae submitted as an updated version. So I don't think that we should be doing anything like that. That's like way, and not only that, once you have it, you have it. I mean, you're just gonna add, different, and if you teach a different course, you're gonna add that course. But I mean, all that information, as far as I'm concerned, is in HR. If somebody needs it, they can go look in HR.
Right.
I don't think we need to be collecting it in this process.
Well, and this is a very formal mentoring system and I think these have mentoring program, and I think these have to be approved through the college with particular processes in place. You have policies around them. I was, reading about the difference between mentoring systems and buddy systems, more informal.
Right.
System.
Yep.
This appears to me to be that very formal one that is, you go through the college to establish this, as opposed to the informal mentoring or buddy system. And so, so I think that from our process and from how the QEP reads, it seems like it's talking about, and the intent was more of an informal buddy or mentoring system. Maureen, you still here?
Of course, I'm just taking a nap. No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm listening.
What was the discussion, that you
Yeah,
guys were-
definitely. It was just about more of a buddy, like somebody could go to if you had questions.
Right.
Because I think that was the thing, was like everybody needs kind of a resource, like they need to know who they can go to if they have a question. And,
Mhm.
I'm all about, the last thing I ever want to do is give an instructor more work. Like, to me, that is, like, I want to have good quality instruction, but I don't want busy work, because instructors have enough to do. I'm very protective of instructor time because I was one and I know how it is. So yeah, it's too much on this form right now.
Right, right. So I think we are all been in agreement that the College of the Albemarle has a very structured program, very formal program. And while there's some components we can draw from, that we're not interested at this time in moving to a formal mentoring program like's represented in this content, but we can pull some pieces from it that we like.
Right.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, and so the pieces are the timeline with less rigid components on it, and maybe 2 different groups, so people don't feel
Well,
like.
that's what I think, but I mean, I'll, whatever the group wants to do is fine with me. I mean, I don't, I liked it, but if the others think it's too much, or if they just want to have it when the faculty get evaluated, because I know right now, and it's always been this way, I don't really get a lot of time before I'm evaluated. Like I'll get a notice like, oh, fill out this form and then we'll talk about it kind of thing. So it would be nice to know, okay, in February, I'm going to be evaluated, or in October, or whatever time it is, so that I would have time to, we've already fill out self-evaluation forms that don't include this course piece, right? So, I mean, the part about the course is that we fill out for self-eval is very broad. It's not really detailed like this form here. So that's adding another form onto that. So whenever, it would just make me feel more comfortable, but if that's up to the other people too. I mean, if they think that that's a good idea, that's fine. If they don't, I'm okay with that too. So
we typically get, in the fall, we'll have people who are either brand new instructors, whether they're full-time or adjuncts, or they're existing faculty and they get assigned some type of online class, but they've not taught online at all. And so this kind of goes along with the onboarding process, for new faculty. And so having the opportunity to start at the beginning to build these pieces in at the beginning of that semester, and have a buddy or informal mentor, assigned to them to just start at that time would be beneficial. And this seems to be what it's suggesting, right? And then in the spring, then they're off on a good path.
right.
And in the spring, you sometimes pick up new people for the same reason. So I think that's the concept with the 2 different groups. And whether that first, and so that allows you to have somebody else to pick up.
Well, one thing that I would, if we go with the informal buddy system, which is what I had in mind, which I thought was a really good idea, whoever brought that up. But the thing that I wanted to throw out there is that we would sort of be either volunteering to be mentors, or if we would be assigned to the new person. And then as seasoned faculty, we would be the first ones to reach out to the person, because it just seems like they get here and, they don't even really know anyone. But I think it's important to have someone who works here, another faculty member, actually, you get the name and phone number and you call that person and say, I'm so-and-so and I'm, here to help you out. So whatever you're going to say, but, have that first contact be something that brings them in and makes them feel welcome. And
So it
I'll
sounds
stop
like,
talking about it. I'll stop
So-
talking about it now.
no, it's okay. That's excellent. So it sounds like that we need to kind of talk about 2 things, and that is, number one, how are mentors how do mentors, in the QEP, it says seasoned faculty, right? And so how are people who are going to be mentors, how is it determined who is eligible to be a mentor, right? You know, who is it that can be a mentor? Is it whoever volunteers to be a mentor? What if someone volunteers to be a mentor who has not taught online? You know, and we haven't established any, are we going to establish any criteria, or who's going to decide whether someone should be a mentor or not be a mentor? You know, I think we're going to have to think carefully about that. I don't think we need some big long list of criteria, but we probably need some criteria, you know, that at least they have to have taught online, and maybe on their evaluation, maybe they have to have, I don't know. Do you see where I'm going with this? You know, how do we decide? And is it the chairs that make the decision? You know, who's, you know, I don't know. How do we determine? Is it anybody who volunteers? Because if we don't make some kind of criteria, that's what it's going to be, and then that can get real awkward.
Do you think that people who haven't taught before online would volunteer to be online learning mentors?
They might. I don't know. I don't want to set us up for that to happen.
I could see where you could still put out a call for volunteer mentors, but make the criteria really clear. Like, we're
Yeah.
looking for online learning mentors. If you have taught online for this long and have
Yeah.
this experience,
Yes.
we'd love to have you, kind of thing.
Yes, I do too. And so I'm thinking that we need just some type of baseline criteria. Do you agree?
I agree.
Okay. So that's something that we're going to need to hash out, a baseline criteria. And then should so let's say, would it make sense then that once we have a pool of mentors, and if the new person is in the English department, if there's someone in the English department who has volunteered and they fit the, you know, that in their there's a mentor, or, you know, there, then it would be someone out of the English department. If there's, you know, that we would try to put that person with someone in their own department or their own division. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
makes sense.
okay.
But one thing that you have to keep in mind though is, you know, you're gonna have to also, I don't know how many new people we get in different areas, but, you know, say something happened where you had 5 brand new faculty, you know, you don't want the same person mentoring 5 people, you know, it's, you want to, you know, be conscious of that too.
And we
So-
have such small departments that it may not be possible to make sure that, you know, or like college transfer, I teach English, but we just got a new faculty member teaching history. So does that mean, you know, I think it's more important that the mentor is good at online instruction more
Yeah.
than that they know the subject matter.
That's what I was gonna say, you know, if there's a subject specific question, the mentor can always say, I'm not really sure, let me find out and I'll get back to you. But, you know, I think our college, logistically, we might be too much to try to pair them up. And since it is such a small college, you know, maybe that would be too hard. Maybe it would just be easier to give them out. And then, you know, the person just be helpful and say, I don't know, let me find out for you.
Mhm. So is it just gonna, how are the mentors gonna be assigned, I guess is my question. So I think that I'm just throwing out things that we're gonna need to make decisions on, right? Is it the person's,
You're gonna do it.
I'm not doing it. Is it the chair? Do we sort of like?
It's you, it's you, it's you.
Is it the chair? Do we say, okay, here's this list of people who met the criteria to be a buddy? And then the chair gets someone, and then, you know, if they're an online person, they can be assigned a buddy. You know, is it mandatory, not mandatory, you know? Would, you know, does the chair decide, okay, well, here's a list of people, you know, or the chair says, okay, I've got this list of buddies, you know, that's available. Is it next man up? Or do they just pick someone, let the chair make that decision about, since they know that person who they think would be a good fit? You know, we have to probably outline a process for that.
Well,
Judy's going, Kim, stop it. I can Judy's face. It's like,
I think that, you know, if at all possible, it should be in the same discipline, or you should have the same chair at least. But I agree with Maureen and Rochelle. It's more important that you know about
Mhm.
the Moodle processes and teaching online than it is the discipline, because the person should already be an expert in their field if that's what they're hired for here, right? So they really shouldn't need a lot of work for the discipline. But if
Mhm.
there was some, like if say I was mentoring somebody from Rochelle's department and the person asked me something I didn't know, I would just say, well, I don't know that. I think you should talk to Daniel about that particular piece.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, something like that, because it should be very informal. I think it's like, I want to just be there to be helpful to the person, not to overwhelm them, not to like give them tons of information that they don't need right now. It's like when they can run across something that's puzzling to them, you know,
Mhm.
but still, you know, I want to make like regular contact with them, like at least once a week for a month or two. Like, how's everything going? Are you having any problems, any questions about it? That kind of thing, just making sure that they know that I'm available and willing to help them. But it's not something that I want to be like, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that. You need to do that. You know, I don't want it to be that harsh. But
Okay.
if you're going to say, I think it should be somebody who has at least, you know, 2 or 3 semesters teaching online
Yeah.
and has decent evaluations from their students.
And you make a good point about maybe it is better for them to at least be in the same division. Because I'm not sure that I would be the best to tell somebody in like automotive or cosmetology, the best way to convey their information in an online class, like English or a humanities-based class, yeah, but maybe not some other disciplines.
Right. So
Right.
it seems like to me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Dr. Rahman, were you getting ready to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. So I'm just sort of thinking that the committee, as a QEP committee, that we're putting the process in place to allow the establishment of this group of people, right? But it's probably not our position or our task to assign them, right? That we just make the process available and the list of people available. And then when new people are hired, it seems like to me that the list is available, and maybe the chairs would say, we have this buddy system, you know, and then we'd like to pair you up with a buddy to help you get started. And then the chair would look and see if they have somebody in their department or division, then they would make a choice about that. What, you know, that, I guess I'm not feeling like it should be the committee, our committee, who makes an assignment.
Yeah.
What do you guys
Right.
think?
And the
That's really
chairs
the
should
point
like
I'm trying
that,
to make.
because the chairs, I think that would help them out. You know, if there's somebody else to answer the new person's questions.
Yes, yes.
So I think the division chairs would like that.
And the
they're
chairs
ones who
know
make
their
the
faculty.
decision. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the chairs that we make the list available of people who are mentors,
Mhm.
who said that they wanted to be mentors.
Yep.
And then and we keep it updated, and they just pick.
Yep. I think that it should be the chair saying, you know, but you know, they have to also, the chair has to keep track of who their faculty are mentoring, because you don't want, like, I wouldn't want Rochelle to mentor 10 people. You know, You know,
I
that would
thought
be.
that was understood. I mean, you didn't mention English instructors. I'm like, none of us are gonna do this, so.
Okay,
So, you
Okay.
know, it's like you have to be cautious of it and be aware, not cautious, but just have the chairs have that awareness. Like
okay.
you wouldn't, I would say like you wouldn't put a limit, like you could only mentor 2 people at a time, something like that.
Mhm. So, so when we look at this, this letter to the mentors and, from the College of the Albemarle, and, you know, when we think about mentors, you know, do we want to just put out a document that incorporates some of the pieces for the mentors that, has those months and just some basic things like, you know, make contact, you know, within a certain period of time, like that first week, and, you know, give them your whatever, you know, your contact information. And, you know, what pieces of this do you think that it's important? You know, are we saying that we don't want to get it, that we don't want the mentors to be in the business of looking at their self-evaluation form and saying, you know, because this is what they're doing at the College of Albemarle, they're really helping them with that self-evaluation form and saying, you need to do this and do that to help you prepare. That you're not in the, that we don't want to be in the business of doing that. We want to be in the business of which of these pieces, you know, do we want to do?
We want to be in a supportive position to the new faculty. I don't want to be doing their evaluation of their courses. That's the chair's department. You know, I don't want to be doing any of that. It's like, it's just helpful things. And if they do it, they do it. If they don't, they don't. You know, it's like, I'm not going to be in it. I'm not going to be, you know, making any kind of judgment about what information they take and use and what information they discard. That's up to them as a faculty member. But you know, just one of the things, and I keep going back to when I first started here, because like so many, I was just sort of thrown into my desk and here it is. But you know, one of the things that really was the most difficult for me were like the cultural type things. You know, I knew about teaching online. I knew about teaching face-to-face. I knew about my subject matter. I knew about, you know, a lot of the classroom things, but it was like the culture of how do the faculty interact with the students here? Like, what is it? Was it common for faculty to accept late work or not? Was it common for faculty to make appointments with the students and, you know, really meet with them like on a regular basis? Or is it just sort of, you know, however the students want to handle it? So it was like more that kind of thing. It was more about the unwritten policies and culture of the school than it was the practical part of it. The practical part was the easy part, really. So this would be somebody that could, you know, if I could have said to somebody, if I had known Maureen then, I could have said, hey, this is what I want to do. Like, what, you know, what would people think of this? Right. Because of course, I don't know. I'm sure that, of course, I wanted to fit in and I wanted to do the best for the students, but I didn't want to shock them too badly, you know, whatever. So you see what I'm trying to say about that, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, right. And particularly for adjuncts and people who are part-time, because they are teaching at other schools and other schools have different rules and different cultures, and they don't know what MCC's rules and culture is.
Right, right.
It's particularly difficult for them.
But I think that's what's good about being here because we're so small. I mean, we always mention those hallway conversations, especially in our building. And that's where we pick up a lot of that stuff. I'm not sure it's a formal process, but we can stand out in the hall and say, oh, I did this with my student, or, you know, this is happening kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we hear that all the time. This is going on. Like, what would you do about this? Right. And then we talk about, you know, and everybody throws their 2 cents in and then the faculty decides. But I mean, but that informal process to me is the the best part about being an instructor. Like, it's more than, I prefer that to like reading the faculty handbook, right? And trying to interpret what I don't really, want to be looking at. But but trying, at least, when you're out here, you have that back and forth conversation, and you get an idea what is acceptable and what isn't. So, and I think that is the best part about being in building 4, I think, and working with the people that we work with. It's really wonderful to have that ability to just throw it out there and see what happens.
So it seems like to me, listening to the conversation, that the buddy and mentoring system is more for and that onboarding type of process that we've talked about, and less about implementing the standards review piece. That in the conversation today, that we've identified the standards tool we're going to use. And we've talked about the mentoring system, buddy system, in that if they have questions about the tool, they have someone to ask in addition to their chair about, well, how are you doing this in your course, right? But also about the culture of the school and that kind of thing. But in regard to implementing the how the tool is, how courses are reviewed, the buddy system is not going to be part of that process, right? So when we look back at the tool itself, and we're going to identify the tool, in the current process that's in place is the tools being used in the evaluation process. So I think that probably in regard to implementation for the using that tool in a peer review, we've decided that we don't want to use that mentoring process for that piece, right?
That's right. That's what I think. I think the tool part, that's part of, when they talk to the chair tells them, this is how you're going to be evaluated, and this is what we're going to be using. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're never going to, if they ask me a question about it, that's fine, but I'm not going to be the one implementing it and making sure that they're doing it and all that. That's the chair's job, but if they want to ask a question, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And as the mentor, it can be a good tool to use to say, okay, when you're setting up your class, you want to make sure you have this. And if you have questions about how to do any of this, then I can help you with that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's that, again, that supportive role. So the other question would be, so are we in our standards review process, are we going to write up the process that the review is taken care of during the evaluation process? Is that going to be our stand? Is that going to be how that review is taken care of? And what some other colleges do is they have that evaluation piece, and like College of the Albemarle, they've added a second component that's independent of the evaluation. But instead of theirs being this done through the mentoring group, what they have done is they've established a faculty peer review of the courses. And so they have, they'll randomly, so this faculty peer review group meets, and they randomly just pick a X amount of courses, and they would use a tool, whatever tool you pick, like this tool, and they would review the courses for those pieces, and they would rate them, and then gather the data from that, much like would be done, in the evaluation. Now, what some people are doing is they're just focusing on the positive pieces, and they're looking for that, and they're using it for feedback on where people are, really, they're pulling out those examples of what people are doing to meet those guidelines. And so that would be a way to use the data, say that we got from the chairs about where people were having difficulty. So when we did that peer review, when we found, when you found examples of where people were really getting that piece that other people were struggling, it would provide samples for them, for people who weren't meeting that as well, to be able to build on. So some people were using that as like a teaching tool, right? And so people were doing that in different ways. So I guess my question is, you know, in regard to having standards and then a way to implement the process of reviewing courses with the standards, is the self-evaluation that's done with by the instructor and then reviewed with the course, with the division chair, what we want to use and just leave it at that? Or do we want to add and is anything in addition?
Well, it sounds to me like if we add something in addition, it's just redundant. You'd be
Okay.
doing the same work twice and just by two different people. And I mean, if you get the information from the chairs, it shouldn't be much different than what a peer would do. But if you get the information from the chairs, I think that's sufficient, but I don't know what everybody else thinks.
What do chairs do now for observations for online classes?
That was what I was getting ready to say is I think part of the review should be an active specific, like when, instead of just sitting down with the chair and they go through the form and they kind of do that, maybe pull the class up. Part of the conference with the chairs, part of the evaluation process should be going through a class. And I don't know that that happens all that much.
When you
Yeah,
say-
are adjuncts observed? Are they even observed?
Well, if they're face to face, I know they are. Occasionally, sometimes, at some point throughout the semester, they are.
I know that I remember seeing a policy where like they're supposed to be observed, but like what if they're teaching online, you know? Or
Well,
whatever, are they being
online-
observed?
Well, like, for example, in my courses, Vicky is a member of all my courses, and last semester, Dr. Miller was. She's not in my courses this semester. But Vicky is in all of my courses. So Vicky is in everyone's course and she can go in and look at anything she wants, anytime she wants. So I don't know if
Yeah, but
we
is she,
can,
are they doing a formal observation for the adjuncts?
well, I know
Like
that,
going in their courses?
And Maureen, I don't know,
I
that's
don't
an
know.
excellent question because there's supposed to be a formal evaluation of all observation of all courses, right? And so I don't know what the process is to conduct that for online courses. So that would be something that I would have to ask.
Yeah, but
Okay,
it's supposed to happen online. If you're an online instructor, it's supposed to happen just as if you were a face-to-face instructor, like people, the chairs. I know I have a adjunct in for one of the economics courses and for the entrepreneurship courses. And I know that Vicky did go in and observe both of them as instructors. And I think Dr. Miller did, I don't know if she did it this semester, but I know she has done it in previous.
Because we don't want to be, you know, adding something else if they're already
Yeah.
doing, it, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
all right. So I get it seems to be the consensus of the group is that there is already a process in place based on this form and that is sufficient. And there needs to be clarification on what the process is for the observation of the online courses. And we would need to write that up in some type of implementation document and add this form to it and use that as our standard.
Well, definitely, I'd like to know what is currently happening before, we make any decisions about what's gonna happen in the future, I guess.
So how exactly, when that form is, what is the process that that?
Yeah,
form
what is
is?
the process now?
Okay,
Yeah, right. And for the face-to-face also, because just because I think most of the face-to-face, at least in my department, a lot of them are hybrid, the face-to-face ones, so they're only meeting part of the time. But even if they're meeting the full 3 hours of this week, they're still doing the work online. So the course is still set up in Moodle, so the students can do their homework online. So regardless of how they're teaching the students, that observation of the course needs to be addressed in some way.
so you're saying even the traditional courses, because things are being put online?
Yeah. So, and I know when I was teaching traditional face-to-face courses, even if I had I was meeting with the courses, classes twice a week, I put everything online. They did all their homework online. So, and I think that that's still happening. So if it's not happening, I would be surprised.
Mhm. Okay. All right, okay, so I'll find out then what those processes are, and then when we meet at our next meeting, if we could if we could nail down with that information provided, what our process is going to be then for what that standard would be, and then a process, at least do a draft of, document of that. And then also go ahead and get the criteria down for the mentoring, but the informal mentoring, then we could get those two components.
What was the first thing, the process for evaluation, you mean?
The online standards review,
Okay,
course review,
okay,
online what standards, what was the
I know what you mean.
you know what I mean.
And then the buddy process, right? Okay,
Yeah. These are
okay,
the two things. And so maybe look through the documents again from COA in regard to the time, those months, and what, things that we would, minimum things, that we would ask a mentor to do. And maybe pull those things from that online mentoring program, online mentoring process sheet, where it says mentor directions under the College of the Albemarle. Maybe just outline what things that we would expect. So the criteria, and then the months, and what we would like to see done under the months without it being, really too overly prescriptive or cumbersome, but just so the mentors are sort of making contact on a regular basis and at least doing something similar.
Is this what you were talking about, Kim?
Yes. Like, certainly we would want them to make a contact, in a certain period of time, but we're not going to ask them for their self-evaluation form and course
Right.
access, because we decided we didn't want to do that.
right.
And so, so in that first, you might want to, put in there, establish relationship, i.e., or provide your contact information, get their contact information, explain your supportive role or whatever, something like that.
Mhm.
And then each month, touch base or whatever you want to put.
Okay, well, that sounds good.
Okay.
All right, how about our next meeting? Would Thursday, the 24th of February work for everyone? Same time, 11 a.m., 11 to 12?
February 24th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Sounds good.
okay, and then I will send out a Zoom link. I have to remember to not to turn off that other link. So I will send you a Zoom link for it. But so we're going to be on Zoom on the 24th at 11, right? Okay, and everybody knows what Kim asked us to do. Look at the process for the online standard review and the process for the buddy system, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and all right. Thank you so much. That was a very good meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Bye, Austin. Thank
Bye.
you.